Hello, Space Cadets. Welcome back to Moon Farm. This is your captain speaking, and you're listening to another episode of the Farm Chores podcast. I'm really excited that you are here. I'm really excited to talk to you, and I appreciate your support. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or one of those other ones that has the ability to leave a review, if you'd go ahead and leave me a 5-star review, let them know that you enjoy listening to this podcast. If you don't like this podcast, I'm not asking you to lie. I'm just asking that you keep it to yourself. So that's all I ask. I'm kidding. I do appreciate y'all being here. If you enjoy this audio podcast, then you might also enjoy my YouTube channel where I do long-form video content. Or you might also enjoy my TikTok where I do short-form video content. Or you might just like my marketing materials, so you head over to Instagram and see all of the, really polished public side of the business. All of those and the links can be found at my website, moonfarm.us. Today we are going to be talking about what is no-till gardening. That's going to be the topic. We're going to talk about, the very basics, a crash course to no-till gardening, what you should know if you want to try it yourself, maybe talk about some reasons why you want to attempt it, and, all the reasons that it is, right now, the big rage, what everyone's talking about. There's a reason for that, and we'll go over it a little bit. Before we get too far, I just want to let you know this episode is sponsored by me. It's sponsored by me, and it's sponsored by itself. So there's a limited edition Farm Chores podcast hoodie. It is soft. It is comfortable. It is super premium. I tell you, I spared absolutely no expense getting this thing made. It's got a wonderful Moon Farm logo on the sleeve, so you can let everyone know that you're part of the Moon Farm Space Program. And it's got our logo, me with my duck friend off to go do some farm chores. I like it, and I think it's a lot of fun. So go check it out, moonfarm.us/podcast. You can find it there, as well as stickers of that logo. Hi, Murphy. How are you doing today? Hi, good boy. We've been doing some training today. He is doing really well. Oh, you just wanted to sniff the rooster? Good boy. He's doing so well today. Of course, right when he gets off tether, he does go a little crazy for a little bit until he figures out, like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, I've got a job to do. And then once he settles back down, he's doing wonderfully. And honestly, if I had a better fence right now, I would consider letting him try spending a night off tether. The only thing really holding me back is the occasional times when he makes a bad choice and the fence situation. So in the near future, we'll get there. Fencing is going to be a springtime project once the snow melts and everything thaws. Everything is very cold right now. It's a lot of fun. Not really. I mean, the nice thing is that I don't have to worry about mud. The downside, of course, is that it's absolutely freezing. I've gotten pretty good at layering this year, though. I feel like I'm doing well, or at least that I'm used to the cold more than I would have been in the past. We're supposed to get some very cold weather coming up. We've got 0 degrees, -4 this week. So one of the things that I'm going to do while I'm making this podcast is get some fresh straw out for Murphy and stuff his house nice and full so that he's got fresh, warm straw for this week. The chickens are doing good. I had an unfortunate circumstance with some quail. I hatched out a fresh batch of quail like I usually do and put it into my new brooder that I built. And then somehow my temperature controller lost power in the middle of the night, and the temperature in this brooder dropped and absolutely wrecked my poor quail. So very frustrating. And certainly I'm hoping to find some, snake owners with some smaller snakes who could make use of the chicks. Because I really don't want them to just go to waste. But we'll try again. I've got a fresh batch of eggs that I'm collecting, and we'll start hatching here again in the near future. I made a mistake during the hatch process, and I guess I calculated the days wrong, and they started hatching early while they were still in the egg turner. And that was a huge fiasco. I had to fix that. But once I got it fixed, everything seemed okay. It just really hurt my hatch rate. I got less than 50%. So Murphy, behave. Good boy. Good boy. The one challenge I have with him right now is when I go into the chicken coop to collect eggs, he wants to follow me. And once he's in there, all the chickens start freaking out. And when they start freaking out, he thinks it's time to play. And that's real tough. He's been doing good though. So yeah, I had an unfortunate circumstance with the quail, but it is what it is. My tractor birds are doing really well. They're still laying a lot of eggs, which I'm loving that. My customers are really loving it too. The snow is still here. Everything's held up well. Oh, that reminds me, apologize for the late episode this week. As you heard in that episode, I had some, this is corn. I just walked over here to give Murphy his food, and it's a bucket of corn. Hold on, Murphy, easy. Good boy. Good boy. Yeah, I know, you're trying your best. You're trying your best. It's because I tried to feed him corn, that's why he was... All right, we've got your actual bucket of food. Go give him some food. He's getting extra right now because it's so cold, and I want to make sure that he has plenty. I know, buddy. His new heated bucket is working really well. When it snows really hard, the snow kind of collects in the top of it, and so it becomes like slush. But he doesn't seem to mind too much. He just drinks around it. There's some food for you. We'll put those in. Tell you what, Murphy, let's take your food bowls and put them back in your house where they were so that they don't get full of snow, huh? There's food all over the ground. But he seems to have eaten just about everything that was in his house, so that's good. There you go, pup. Silly boy. Oh, yeah, I'm having fun in the snow. It's a lot of fun. The greenhouse is holding up well. All the snow's pretty much melted off of it and slid down. That's good. I was a little worried that it wouldn't melt before we got the next snow, and so I'd really have to clear it, but it does look like it has melted off, and now it's snowing again, so we should be okay. What do you think, Murph? Should we give the chickens some corn? Corn is for chickens? I agree. There's some corn. Murphy, that's not for you. Leave it. What a silly boy. Give them their corn. Hi, duckies. All the chickens pretty much are inside the house, except my 3 roosters. My 3 roosters are currently out in the cold with the ducks. Why? I don't know. They must just like the ducks or something. I was wearing a ball cap on top of my stocking cap, my Moon Farm hat, and I dropped it in the chicken's waterer, so now it's all wet, which is really unfortunate. Anyway, I need to get eggs, so Murphy, do me a favor. Don't come in the chicken coop. I may just close the door and leave him out here. Hopefully he just behaves. You wait outside, huh? What's he gonna do? Murphy, stay. He's got his nose in the little hole that the chickens come in. Oh my gosh. What are you doing? Okay, you're gonna wait there? All right, you behave. I just added an extra roost for the chickens I noticed they were a little crowded. And I think because they were crowded, they were starting to sleep in the nesting boxes, which obviously that makes a mess. So, oh, hold on. Murphy! Murphy! Where'd you go? No! 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 You can't chase chickens. Quit that. You butt. That's what I was worried about, so that I'd come in here and then he would start chasing stuff. You stay out. You stay out. Hopefully he behaves. I only need him to behave for like, I don't know, 30 seconds while I run in here and... Guys, why aren't you eating your food? There's like a whole bucket of food. Are the ducks not coming in here? It's cold. Shouldn't you be eating extra food? Right? You're a rooster. Get out of the nest box. Come on. Oh, good number of eggs to... Excuse me. So loud. And in this nest box, we've got 2 chickens. Oh, we've got 3 chickens and a duck. Not sure what that was about. Having a secret meeting or something. All right, everybody's getting antsy. Good boy. Hi, buddy. Did you behave? Did you behave? Get your nose out of the egg bucket. Silly dog. So our show topic today, we're going to do an introduction to no-till farming. No-till farming is what I do here at Moon Farm. It's also what a lot of other market garden style farmers, you know, the Curtis Stones, the Jean-Martin Fortiers, that, you know, the market garden style that's really become popular. And what this comes down to, the reason why it's kind of caught on, goes into a completely different show topic. In fact, this might be my next show topic. I want to talk to you about what the future of farming looks like, what I think is going to happen to our farms, and the direction I think they're headed. So keep that in mind. That's coming in the future, I hope. Oh, goodness. Hi, quail. Hello. Are y'all having fun in here? Let's start by getting them some water, because I'm pretty sure it was low. No, they're actually doing good on water. We got half a bucket. So I guess, well, we'll top it up, because if I don't put this water in there, it'll just freeze. And then I wasted time. There's one. So when you think of no-till farming, you probably imagine small farms like ours. You might even think of, you know, maybe larger farms, but especially those that are a little more, I guess, for lack of a better term, famous. Your YouTube homesteaders and whatnot. No-till farming, I want to credit the surge to the Back to Eden garden movement, which is similar. It is a no-till method. Back to Eden specifically, though, they take their garden and basically cover it with wood chips. They throw wood chips on top of it, and that protects the soil. It's designed to kind of mimic what you'd find in a forest floor. And obviously, the trees don't need help growing. And that was kind of the concept. Mother Nature has the ability to grow things without the need to irrigate, without the need to constantly weed. So what is she doing that's different? And that's what Back to Eden came from. Basically, trying to mimic that that place in nature that is no kind of hands-free, if you will. The nice thing about doing this, the mulch breaks down, it provides nutrients, it locks the moisture into the soil, so it reduces your consumption of water significantly. Murphy, what you doing? Okay, he's just sniffing. It, you know, it lowers a lot of the workload because hopefully if your mulch is thick enough, you don't have to weed, at least not nearly as much. Murphy, behave. It's a pretty good system of gardening, frankly. If I was just doing a small scale, I'd probably do it. The thing that is difficult with Back to Eden is turning over. So once you've grown, well, for one, you can't plant like rows of lettuce using a seeder because obviously you have mulch in the way and you got to get that out of the way to plant, and lettuce doesn't grow well in mulch. So it works well for some things, but not others. And then when it comes time to turn that bed over, let's say you grew your row of lettuce. Leave it, Murphy. Leave it. Leave it. Let's say you grew your row of lettuce and now you're ready to call it because you've already harvested it 4 times. It's looking bad. And so you're going to call it and you're going to plant some, let's say, spinach. In order to turn over that bed, you need to be able to find a way to get out of the egg bucket, Murph. You need to find a way to remove the system with the lettuce, get that soil reworkable to be able to plant. Back to Eden is not quite as easy for doing those things, and that's just because the mulch gets in the way. It's great for tomatoes or other larger crops where you just rip them out at the end of the year and go from there. You know, you can replant right in that exact same spot, maybe with a little chicken manure fertilizer or something like that. But it doesn't work so well for our leafy greens, our cut and come again type crops. And so from a farming perspective, it's not terribly popular among small scale farmers, especially like me. Ow, I just got shocked by the electric fence, dang it. Woohoo! Murphy's laughing at me. He's looking at me, laughing at me. What a butt. The fence is on, in case you're wondering. So don't touch it. I am utilizing the Back to Eden style for some of my perennial type beds. So I've got my herb garden with perennial herbs, and I'm using a heavy mulch layer to reduce the amount of work and effort that I need to put. Hey, leave it! Sorry, Murphy just jumped at the rooster. I bet you that was really loud. I'm sorry. Murphy, hey, you behave. So I'm using it in certain circumstances, but generally I am doing what, just for ease of conversation, I call it a market garden. So it is a garden specifically designed to grow a quantity necessary to go to market. And I utilize the no-till method. And that is exactly what it sounds like. I don't use a tiller on my beds. So what does no-till actually mean? What is it and what is it not? Well, to start, it is, as it says, we don't use tillers. However, kind of counter to that, no-till methods do break up the soil and cultivate it, just not in the same way. So when you think of a tiller, maybe a disc of some kind, or a ripper that you might see on a tractor, what those are doing is it's taking the dirt and it's turning it over and it's chopping it up and it's pulverizing it and making that soil workable by force. That is tilling. Oftentimes it's done mechanically using like a rototiller or a tractor, and it's done as a way to make soil reworkable. It makes sense in a lot of ways. In fact, I will sometimes use a tiller. It just really depends on the circumstance. I don't use it in my garden beds, but if I need to make a new garden bed, and so I need to redo the soil structure, I might use a tiller for that very first time, just because it's currently, heavily compacted, it hasn't been cared for. All of the benefits that you get out of no-till, it doesn't have currently. And so I need to reset it, if you will. And that's what makes tilling very dangerous in some circumstances. It kind of resets the soil structure. By breaking it apart like that, you destroy the fungal networks, you rip apart the biome, you take bacteria and funguses that are beneficial, you bring them to the surface and they die either in the sunlight or too dry, or you change that soil conditions they were growing in. You kill a lot of the biodiversity that's in the dirt, the biodiversity that works in tandem with the plant you're trying to grow. You've probably seen soil mixes that are marketed as having like a mycorrhizal fungi or a mycorrhizal additive. Those are great because they have, in a way, like the seeds of the fungal networks that go into growing plants, that interact positively with the plants you're trying to grow. In fact, to make it a little more interesting, in the forest, there's been studies that show that when trees need something, they start to, I don't know the exact specifics because it's been a while since I read or listened about it, but basically the tree's able to send signals, chemical signals, into the ground that say, hey, I need sugars, or I need iron, let's just say. And the funguses that are in the ground respond to those signals, and they pass along iron or whatever to the tree, and in return the tree gives the fungus sugars that the fungus needs to grow and thrive. And they work together in that way, and it's really super cool. But if you come and you till that up, well, you just disrupted their highway. Now they aren't able to, it's like, yeah, you can bring stuff in from next door, but you can't drive to the supermarket anymore. You just lost a lot of that good stuff that you were bringing in. And it's the same way with tilling. Tilling breaks apart those highways. Now, like I said, there are circumstances where those highways really suck, or they don't exist at all. So, for example, when I started building this farm here, we had to clear the land, and the land was basically brush, small trees. It was a really unhealthy biome, and we had to clear that. Obviously, at this scale, we did it with machines, and those machines made a lot of compaction. They left a lot of debris. They made it really, really difficult, almost impossible in some places, to actually work that soil. The soil here is also heavy clay, so the sun came out and dried the clay and turned it into a rock. There is no soil diversity to speak of. None. And that's an issue. But I can't just throw some compost on top of it and wait. And it's, like I said, rock hard. I can't work that in by hand. That's just not possible. So a tiller might be useful in that circumstance as the first time to break it apart. But once you've done that, once you've incorporated that compost in and you've started building good soil health, you don't want to then till again because you'll just break it back apart. Now you can top dress compost. You can cultivate it in with a hand cultivator. Mixing is cool. Broad forks are a tool that's used by no-till gardeners a lot. And they're basically like a 30-inch wide pitchfork with two handles. And you stab it into the ground and then use your body weight to lean back and basically break open the ground. Those are great. What's the difference between that and a tiller? Well, a tiller takes everything and rips it all apart. It pulverizes it. It creates dust. It makes the particle size in your soil smaller and smaller, which leads to greater compaction. Whereas your broad fork, your hand cultivator, your hoe, those allow you to get air into the soil without continuing to pulverize it and without killing the components of that soil that you need. So that's why you might pursue no-till over a till style. It comes down to just better soil health. And there are a lot of ways to do it. I use row cropping, and when it comes time to turn over a bed, like I was mentioning earlier, usually what I do is I will go through the bed and cut everything right down to the soil. And some people use like they call it a flail mower, almost like a weed whacker, but like lawnmower sized, to cut it all the way down to the soil. And then I either use a stirrup hoe, or some people call it a scuffle hoe, to get up under the roots and cut those of these plants so that it kills them. I may use just a regular hoe to just mix it up a little bit. But the best way for turning over a bed is time. If you have access to time, you can do a much better job, and you can do it by solarizing the soil. So rather than trying to chop it up and mix it manually, you can get a tarp, usually black, just to prevent the light from getting through. Lay that on the soil, allow that to smother whatever's left growing. It'll also smother the weeds, obviously. And the warm moistness also causes weeds to germinate and helps kill those. And then they die because they don't have light, they don't have good air. And then a week or two later, maybe longer, depending on how warm it is where you are, maybe less, you got some nice soil where everything has started to really break down. The funguses in the soil have had a nice meal, breaking that stuff down and returning those nutrients back into the soil. It's really super cool, and that's my preferred method for turning over a bed if I have time. Oftentimes, though, I need to get it done a lot faster. So what does it look like if you don't use no-till? Well, you've probably seen a garden where they rototill it every year. It's dusty. It is kind of a dull color. You know, the soil is not rich and dark. Maybe they have to add compost a lot. Maybe they're not getting good growth. That's possibly a symptom, a result of no-till. Let's think of it on a bigger scale, though. Have you ever driven past a cornfield? Now, I guarantee you that cornfield used a tiller of some kind, a disc tiller or otherwise, to break down last year's crop so that they could plant this year's. And in doing so, year after year after year, you lose the soil health. You start depleting the nutrients. And the result of this is that these bigger farms that are using these methods spend thousands and thousands of dollars dumping extra fertilizers, especially nitrogen, onto their fields. Now, it could be in the form of manure, so I'm not necessarily saying that they're using chemicals, but they are constantly having to put a lot of additives into their soil because otherwise nothing grows. Hi, Muscovies. You need some fresh water? It's looking like you do. It's a little cold out here. Your water's a bit frozen. Here you go. Wait, I got another bucket for you. There you go. Dusty soil has bad soil health. It does poorly at holding and distributing nutrients. It does really poorly at preventing erosion. That's why we have an issue with erosion on more traditional farms, is because of this lack of soil health. And like I said, it really means that you're going to have to spend more time and money continuously adding nutrients to these fields. Now, you'll still probably have to do that in your home garden if you do no-till, because you do remove nutrients as you grow stuff. But we can help that by growing things like cover crops, which we can talk about that in an entire episode. But, you know, because cover crops like legumes put nitrogen back into the soil and help add more nutrients. And then when you mow them down, they become a green mulch that adds those nutrients back into the soil. There are a lot of things you can do to take better care of your soil health, but no hate. I understand why these big farms do it, right? I mentioned earlier that I gave my chickens corn. Without the methods that we use today, of using large tractors to till and rip up huge plots of land, there wouldn't be any corn for me to feed my chickens. Eventually, I do want to get to the point where my farm is a closed loop system and I can provide all of the nutrients that my animals need with stuff produced on farm. Eventually getting back to some point where it is waste products that feed something like, let's say, earthworms that become food for my birds, or mealworms, or Murphy, leave it, or something like that. That'd be great. But until I get to that point, and for pretty much every backyard chicken keeper or farmer, it's really not an option. You don't have the option of avoiding products from farms like that. And the same can be said about soy. The same can be said about, corn, soy, wheat, all of those things. We could not produce the quantities required without tilling, unfortunately, because we just haven't reached that point. It would either take more land, more labor, more resources, stuff that on a smaller scale, I can do that. But do you think I could plant 100 acres of lettuce and not till it? You think I could weed that by hand? I don't think so. That would not be possible. Man, I'm having trouble with this zipper. Come on. It's getting stuck. There we go. So tilling has its place, I guess. I wish we didn't have to. I wish we could come up with another way. And there are a lot of advances that have gotten us closer. Like I said, I want to do a video on what the future of farming looks like, but one thing I'll say is that it's probably going to be smaller and local, because my farm can do no-till, and I can take care of my soil. And if there were, I have 5 acres. If there were 20 of me, well, there you go. There's 100 acres. 100 acres of lettuce without tilling. In order to do that, we're going to have to rework a lot of the economic channels. If I sell my 5 acres worth of lettuce and sell it wholesale for 35 cents a head, I can't afford to pay enough people to do it no-till. But if instead I go to the farmer's market and I sell it to you for the retail price and cut out that middleman, well, now I can. And I think that's what's going to be required in order to rework the structure that necessitates using tilling type practices. And like I said, I kind of rely on them at the moment. And without those farms, my farm would have a real hard time. So what do you think? Are you using any of these at home? Do you employ no-till? I know it's a pretty new concept to a lot of people. In fact, I would be curious to ask my grandmother. Until very recently, when she started having a harder time getting around, she grew a wonderful garden every year, and she always did very well. She always had a ton of tomatoes, a ton of cucumbers. Really, it was the tomatoes that were most important to her, and she grew a lot of, and she grew them very well. Here you go, Muscovies, have some food. Enjoy. And I wonder, because she is in Michigan, so the areas she lives is different ecologically than mine. I have heavy clay soil. She has very sandy soil. And so I'm trying to remember what the soil in her garden looked like. And I don't think it was bad necessarily, but I definitely think it was more on the sandy side. And maybe there was some dust to it. I don't think she used a rototiller though, so maybe she was ahead of her time there and already doing some of these no-till methods. What do you think? Is it something that you're going to try? Is it something you're doing already? If you want to send me a question, send me a comment, I'd love to read some of those on the podcast and get some interaction going. My email is alex@akronmicrogreens.com. You can go to my website, moonfarm.us, and find that email, or probably even my phone number if you'd like to send me a text message. If you'd like to send it via snail mail, I've got a P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 95, Diamond, Ohio, 44412. Again, that's Moon Farm, P.O. Box 95, Diamond, Ohio, 44412. Love to hear from you. Make sure you go pick up your Farm Chores Podcast hoodie. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.